What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what news is affecting the markets right now, what's going on with SPY in the QQQ and many tickers out there, and talk about some news affecting Tesla as we have some updates involving the Cybertruck and also the GM deal. But before I break anything down about all of this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo and put in $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, Tesla was up 4.06% for the day overall. Once again, holding up quite nicely in my opinion. Like, yes, it did drop quite a bit from that 250 level, but it's still in the 244 range. That's still a lot higher than where Tesla was a couple of days ago. Now, when it comes to the markets, I want to break down what I said earlier and how that ended up playing out. Some interesting volatility on SPY and the news affecting Tesla. Now, in my video from yesterday, I told you guys that if Tesla wants to squeeze, we have to break and hold 250. That's going to be your confirmation of it pushing up higher. Tesla failed to do that. We didn't really get a clean break above it. And I also warned you guys about the possibility of Tesla slowing down a bit because, once again, after we get those big pumps, we tend to see Tesla gap up very hard. Then we tend to slow down a little bit, and we could have gotten more buyers later on, but we didn't see enough buyers to help Tesla push and break 250. Now, once again, that's still okay because Tesla pumped a lot. I mean, it's still up pretty big, and there's a lot of potential for next week, depending on how things go. Now, for my video from the morning, I talked a lot about how I saw some downside for Tesla based off the technicals. I told you Tesla would likely retrace a little bit, and I looked at some Fibonacci retracement zones just to give you guys more ideas and like more pieces of information about the retracements. And we did see Tesla retrace. I just wasn't sure how low it would go because it depends on where the buyers came in. And if anything, we did see Tesla decline quite a bit, but it held above the 30 minutes 50 EMA. So that's a pretty good sign for Tesla holding up for now. And now it's all up to the data and the Fed coming out for next week to dictate how Tesla will move ultimately. The news will play a big role too, but those are going to be some of the biggest factors that we know of. And get ready for next week. It's going to be pretty massive. Now, how massive is it going to be? Well, just to remind you guys, going up right here, we have some data about consumer inflationary expectations, which is going to be important. It tells us more about the psychological effect on Monday. For Tuesday, we have CPI. That's going to be huge in itself. Then for Wednesday, we have PPI, which is pretty big, plus the FOMC meeting and the rate hike decision. That's going to be massive for Wednesday. For Thursday, we have some data from the Fed, not as huge until Friday, where we have a crazy day. We have OPEX expirations. Lots of options are expiring. It's going to cause more volatility for the markets most likely. So we have so much going on. We have Bullard speaking on Friday too. So much data is coming out next week. This is going to be wild, and I expect lots of volatility for Tesla. I'm going to keep you guys informed every single day. Now, as for Tesla and as for the markets, I mean, I told you guys that on SPY in the morning, we were looking pretty nice, and I expected this thing to get a nice push up. But I also warned you guys to be careful because when we push up, okay, there's no guarantee that just because we break a major level, it's not going to like come back down again. And sometimes that happens, right? But we did get a very big break to the upside after breaking 430 in a very strong manner. And this is just the epitome of what a strong breakout could look like. Now, was it a strong breakout? In the morning, yes, we managed to go all the way up to this resistance zone. I told you guys to watch 431.22 to 431.76. Historically, we've seen SPY get rejected around this level. Instead, it got rejected closer to where this like 432 level is, a psychological level, just barely above the zone I said, like 23 cents above it before it came right back down. And when it started dropping, we had to watch 430 as support. We failed to hold it, and then we saw the market come down. However, what's good is the fact that we held above the 50 EMA and the market continued to hold up. And overall, we got a pretty decent close. We closed green at 429.9, just under 430, very close to it, and the market is still showing some strength. Tesla is showing strength, so is the QQQ. And why did the market hold up? Like I said before, we had all these options expiring. Looking at the options chain, it's just pretty insane. It's almost 50-50 on the call side in terms of what was in the money and out the money. On the put side, only 37,000 in the money puts and 1.1 million puts expired out of the money. So the shorts got squeezed again. We got a 1.93 put to call ratio. The market makers favored the bulls. They favored those with the calls. And that's the reason why they held the market up. Now, I told you guys this yesterday. We'd like to see the market either hold up or even squeeze. We saw a squeeze in the beginning, but it wasn't sustainable because resistance was very, very tough, and that slowed down the markets. And then after that, the market just continued to trade sideways, and it was very boring near the very end. Now, for Tesla, there is some news that came out. I mean, their inventory levels are just going up for the Model 3. We're waiting for the next inventory of the new model, basically, the new version of it, the next generation. And besides that, everything else is pretty much very similar. The Model X is getting more sales, which is good. But what isn't so good is the Model Y listings are starting to go up just a bit. I would hope to see this and love to see this go down as we approach the summer. But for now, it's too early to tell about how this is going to play out for the next earnings and the next deliveries. We have lots of time left. Now, we had some big news that came out. I didn't get time to talk about this yesterday, guys. I'm sorry. There was just so much going on yesterday with all the news involving Elon Musk and GM, and the list goes on. But I wanted to talk about this in more detail. Tesla's basically planning on 375,000 Cybertrucks per year, and they're going to be releasing the candidates as soon as August. That's once again some very, very bullish news. Now, what else is good about this? And once again, this came out yesterday. I'm a little bit late at talking about this because there was so much data yesterday, so much going on, which is why I didn't put too much focus on this. Now, I want to just state that they're planning on producing 375,000 of these Cybertrucks per year. That is amazing, amazing news. And I think Elon Musk said somewhere, it says it right here, that at first they said about 250,000, and then they started saying that, or Musk started saying that we could see between 250,000 and 500,000 units per year. Tesla's working on that for the production volume estimates, and the production phase is going to look like an S curve for supply. So it's going to start off very slow, speed up a little bit, slow down again, speed up, slow down, back and forth, kind of like that. They're not in that phase where it's going to start like expanding a lot more. They're more like working on the production mechanisms. That's going to be a lot more important because then you have to mass scale everything, and that's becoming more difficult for them. But they're making a lot of progress nonetheless. And that's the reason why Elon Musk did consult with a lot of these Chinese engineers. He had a lot of them even come to Fremont and the Giga Texas and other places as well. He had a lot of them from China come because they are specialize more in that, right? In China, they tend to specialize more in mass production, quicker production, as Giga Shanghai tends to be bigger. That's going to help improve the facilities in the USA. Now, why is that important? Okay, because when you have outsourcing, you could use your other manufacturers to your advantage by helping them teach their different techniques in a way. And that's very bullish news for Tesla when Elon Musk started doing that, when the news came out about that just a couple of weeks ago. This is going to help them big time going forward to produce the Cybertruck even quicker and more efficiently. There are about 1.5 million reservation holders on the Cybertruck, which is pretty wild when you think about it. There's already that many, and it hasn't even come out yet technically. It hasn't been officially on the streets yet. That just shows how powerful, how big this brand is, because the majority of people trust that Elon Musk and Tesla will perform and give us a great product. Elon Musk even said, okay, he's going to be driving the Cybertruck himself. He is super, super excited about it. He said it's going to be Tesla's best product yet. And I'm very excited for this too. So this is huge news, very, very ambitious news. I can't wait for what the future holds. And there were some updates that came out involving the GM deal with them sharing the supercharger network with Tesla. There's some criticisms that CNBC had. They're stating that too much unified charging could lead to like a lot of backlogs and long lines and stuff. And Tesla's going to have a lot of work to do with the maintenance. But what's good is more sales will come to Tesla, more revenue, more attention for them. And this is once again great news for them moving forward. Tesla's also going to continue to work on different mechanisms to save with the charging. This will help them to produce more infrastructure. That's going to help them mass produce EV charging simultaneously. So per person or per vehicle, it could become a lot cheaper. That's one of the other things I read about in another article, maybe not this one, but very important to note that. And there's going to be a lot of savings, right? This is what they said going forward. We're going to save up to 400 million in the original $750 million that they allocated to do this. So this is going to make things a lot more efficient for them moving forward. Now, that's more for the GM side, for the Tesla side, like I said before, this is going to help Tesla because when you have more and more of these individuals, Tesla can expand their EV charging stations, make them bigger, as Elon Musk was once talking about. And then once again, the cost of production of the energy sector could start dropping. That's one of the things Musk was talking about in one of the previous reports. It's going to become cheaper to start powering up these cars as we get more and more people simultaneously doing it, in his opinion. And he believes there's a lot of potential for it, right? Tesla Solar is growing big time, and I think Tesla has a lot of potential. It's not meeting every expectation like before, but once again, it's still very, very awesome for them. Tesla has control over the network. That's what's so huge about this. They control the network. That gives Tesla even more power in a sense and more ability to profit off of this. So anyways, that's enough talk about, all of this news. Now let's break down one more thing. As for SPY, I mean, right now, if you look at the charts, it's kind of like between support and resistance. We're going to be watching the 50 on the 30-minute. Then we're going to see how it reacts to all this data like CPI and etc. If we get some good numbers, some very, very volatile price actions will happen. If not, if things are not the best, then get ready for a possible rug pull. Not a guarantee. We just have to see the data first. On the QQQ, let me just note that the triple Q is looking pretty decent too. It did get this bearish cross on the 30-minute, but it's holding above the 50 EMA. So it's still looking pretty nice. It's still holding up. It didn't really tank. It came up very hard, then it came down, but it's still at a high level. And we're going to see how this is dictated by Tesla moving forward. Now, I told you guys that resistance was at 357.5. That was the major resistance zone. We got rejected off 357.66. So very, very close. Sometimes these zones are not perfect, but they tend to be very close. And that is where this thing got the rejection. And for now, it's still holding up nicely. For the bears, you want to see this thing break below the 50, then the 200. For now, it hasn't done that. So it's still favoring holding up for the time being. And then going forward with a couple of other things, I mean, the VIX is just up a little bit. Apple held above 180 as expected. It got a nice push to about 182. My target was 182.5. Very close, but it didn't get all the way up there. And now Apple is still above the 50, still holding up. So there's no sign of it like actually breaking down. For NVIDIA, it's above the 52, holding up all right. So most of these stocks are still just holding support. So there's not much going on with them. But for Tesla, now let me just break down a couple of things before I end the video. Tesla has this downtrend on the PPO. Momentum is favoring the bears a bit more, but it's going to be once again heavily dictated by the data that comes out for next week. Now, if you look at Tesla like this, let me just hide these drawings. Tesla gapped up pretty hard going into today. Is Tesla going to start tanking to fill this gap? That's going to depend a lot on how we open tomorrow in the market. Not tomorrow, sorry, next week for the markets and what happens with the data. The data is going to be very impactful in this. And we are getting a potential bearish cross on the 1 hour. So it is possible for Tesla to slow down a little bit more, but there's no guarantee it's going to come all the way down to fill this gap immediately, right? We just have to wait on some important data. We have to wait on what comes out. Now, if you want to see this thing fill the gap, you're going to be watching for a break below 240 and below the 50 EMA on the 30-minute time frame with extended hours, which would be in like the higher to mid like 230s. If that's the case, it's going to come all the way back down to like 235 or so. But once again, I mean, the gap is not that huge. It's not that far. And even if it does come down to fill it, hypothetically, that's okay with me. We're still way higher than where we were a couple of days ago. Look at the beginning of June, okay? Tesla was at 202, 200. If it comes down to fill the gap at 235, we're fine, completely fine. In fact, I want to see it cool off the RSI so it can shoot up even more in the future. Hypothetically, that would be pretty awesome in my opinion. Now, if it doesn't want to fill the gap first, if it wants to just keep pumping, just hypothetically, let's just say there's a lot of good data and it doesn't get much of a drop. Resistance is still at that 250 area. So we're going to be watching that very carefully on these larger time frames. We need to get a clean break and hold above 250. Very strong resistance there. If it does it, there's going to be a good chance of it trying to break to 254, then potentially 257.65, then 260. But for now, it's still below, so I'm not seeing that happening for the time being, and we're just going to have to wait and see how this opens on Monday. The odds are favoring it cooling off a little bit, maybe retesting this bottom here, but once we get the confirmation of the break, we can't truly make the call. It needs to break the low of the day first before we start to talk about like this gap getting filled. And there isn't confirmation of a break below 242 yet, so I'm not going to say that with high certainty just yet. We have to wait for the levels. But until then, that's what I have for this video. I just wanted to keep this as short as possible and help you guys just, enjoy the rest of your Fridays. Tesla's looking very solid. I'm very impressed by it. I'm okay with it coming down to fill the gap. Completely fine, guys. It's still so high compared to where it used to be. If that does happen, if we do get the confirmation of it. And until then, we have a lot of big news coming out next week. It's possible for the market to pump more, and this will most definitely help Tesla if that ends up being the case. All right, so I will talk more about the FOMC meeting tomorrow and like the data because we have some huge things coming out. But until then, remain calm, cool, and collected, and enjoy your weekend, guys. Thank you for listening. Tesla to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.